Love You to Death, Stan Kraychik Mystery. Second in the series. Writer, Grant Michaels. Publisher, St. Martin's Inn, New York, 1992. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 8. Kafka Redux. Out on the street it had begun to snow. It wasn't the usual February sleet that stings your face like 1,000 tiny needles. Instead, the snow was the big, wet, heavy flakes that you could catch easily on your tongue. It was friendly snow, which I took as a good omen. I even got a cab easily, and I headed for Dan Dougherty's place. I hadn't called him first, which might seem rude, but there's an advantage to showing up unannounced and catching people off guard. There's also the possibility of a wasted trip, but I took the chance. Dan lived in a trendy new housing concept called the Nouveau Côté du Sud, which some of us remember as the South End row houses. One whole block of the tiny houses had been razed and replaced by a self-contained community of urban bungalows. A new 10-foot brick wall completely enclosed the block, providing privacy to the contented new residents while also insulating them from the terrors of the real city outside. At the main entrance, a uniformed guard sat in a heated booth. I told him who I wanted to see, and he rang Dan's cottage to announce me. After some brief remarks on the phone, he turned to me and said, "You can go right on in." I entered the complex and walked through a brick-paved maze of evergreen-lined paths. They were snow-free and dry, heated from within the pavement. These folks didn't have to suffer the inconvenience of snow, at least not while on their own sacred property. I got to Dan's unit and rang the door buzzer. When the door opened, a tanned, blonde stranger stood there in shorts and t-shirt. Not exactly New England winter togs. "Hi," I said, oozing vacuous charm. "I'm here to see Dan Dougherty." The stranger looked me up and down, then said flatly, "Dan's not here." "Do you expect him soon?" "No." "Do you know where he is?" He looked at me suspiciously. "It's okay," I said. "I'm his hairdresser." "What's it about?" "It's personal." He started to close the door, so I blocked the attempt with my strong Slavic feet. "Look," I said, "whoever you are, you told the guard to let me in. Now, why can't you tell me where Dan is?" He squinted in one eye at me. "I thought you were bringing the pizza I ordered." If I could be mistaken for a pizza delivery man, my winter wardrobe needed serious reevaluation. But more important, what ruse would this friend of Dan Dougherty's believe? I thought quickly and said, "I owe Dan some money, and I wanted to pay him back, but if I can't find him..." The mention of money caused him to reconsider. "You can give it to me. I'll make sure he gets it." "No offense, but it's a lot of cash, and I don't know you." "Fuck," he said. "Then go find him yourself. He's in Abigail." "Abigail by the sea?" "Is there another one?" He replied sarcastically. Then he pulled the door open, but I sensed he was preparing to bash it closed against my foot. I prefer my instep unbroken, thank you, so I removed my foot. The wedge gone, he slammed the door shut. But he'd given me my next lead. If Dan Dougherty was in Abigail, perhaps he was with Prentice Kingsley at his summer house. Abigail was too small a place for any other conclusion. In fact, it's so cloistered you almost need a permit just to drive through. I left the protection of the walled complex and returned to the street where the snow was driving harder now, unpleasant and more in keeping with the hardship aspect of winter. I guessed I wouldn't be going out later, not with the snow and wind coming up like that. Maybe a hot herbal bath and an even hotter video would fill the cold, empty place where there was no love to keep me warm on a stormy winter night. Despite the weather, though, I decided to walk home, just to burn off some of the extra calories that lingered around my midriff. I got home around 9 o'clock. Outside my apartment door, the building superintendent had left the regularly weekly package from my mother in New Jersey. I could smell the buttery pastry through the wrapping. I knew she'd made them by hand during the week, then wrapped them like porcelain and sent them to me. Insured, I always wondered why she insured homemade pastries. What could they be worth, since to me they were priceless? Inside the apartment, Sugar Baby greeted me somewhat cautiously. She wanted to make sure the coast was clear of Tobias before she did an elaborate little welcome dance for me. 2 figure eights, 2 circles, they fall down in a long crescent stretch, and finally a roll under her back, followed by some very unladylike squirmy, wormy writhings across the carpet, belly and crotch exposed shamelessly. Sugar Baby's vocabulary comprises mostly throaty vowels and expressed throughout the audible range for humans. For variety, she adds the occasional G or W or K. A visiting friend once remarked that Sugar Baby had said Beowulf to him one night, but I never heard it. Tonight her little fandango meant she was happy to see me again. Perhaps she sensed that after my recent adventures, I needed some extra kindness, instead of a haughty and disdainful sniff that meant, "Who needs you, human?" While I peeled away the layers of insulating outerwear, Sugar Baby continued pulling around on the carpet. Purring loudly, I picked her up while I checked my mail. Today it was bills and trash, and in a plain brown envelope, an unsolicited copy of the operating instructions for the spring water septic tank system. Someone's marketing demographic was slightly off target. I checked my answering machine. After a couple of the usual blank messages, I recognized a welcome voice saying, "Stan, it's Tony. Remember me? I'm in town tonight and wondered if you want to get together. Are you there? Pick up the phone. Hello? I guess you're not in. I'll try again later. I hope I can see you tonight." But did I remember him? Was he kidding? I once spilled so much of myself thinking and dreaming about Tony that I was declared a national drought area. I met him years ago when he was still a church organist and choir director in Maine. Even back then, I was convinced he was on a one-man crusade to redefine the staid image of his churchly duties. Tony is, as they say in the vernacular, hot. With the best genes from an Italian father and a Polish mother, he also has great musical talent, world class in fact, and it was only a matter of time before the world noticed it. These days he lived in London and conducted opera at major houses throughout Europe. Occasionally he returned stateside for guest appearances, and tonight he wanted to see little old me. All I had to do now was wait for his call and then keep my heart still as I said, "Come on in." One more blank message, and then I heard Nicole's voice sounding serious and alarmed. "Call me immediately." I didn't bother listening to any more, but called her right away. "Nikki? Tobias is gone. We can't find him anywhere." "When?" "About half an hour ago. He was in the living room. Chaz and I were in the kitchen preparing dinner. When we came out, he was gone." "You looked everywhere?" "Of course. The security guards are still going through the entire building." "What about the police?" "Chaz has already called them. I'm on my way, Nikki." "Stanley, wait. Chaz thinks you should stay home in case Tobias tries to get to your place." That gave me pause. "All right. I'll stay put, but call me if anything turns up." "You do the same." Then she hung up. I poured myself a drink, my usual winter libation, bourbon and bitters, and I had just taken a good slug when I heard someone banging loudly on my apartment door. Could it be Tony, so impatient? How had he got into the building? I peered through the peephole and saw 2 uniformed cops outside. I opened the door. The bigger brute said, "Mr. Kraychik." "Yes," I answered. "We'd like you to come to the station and answer a few questions." "Can't we talk here?" "We got orders to bring you in." "For what?" I asked, alarmed. "Questioning. Just come along." "Okay, but I have to make a phone call first." Nikki would have to know where I was. "You can call for the station if necessary." "But Get ready." What do you do when 2 armed cops are giving you orders? You obey them. That's what you do. Back on went the wet winter clothes. Sugar Baby made a sad little questioning sound. as I once again closed the door and left her alone. There I was, back at Station E. You'd think I wouldn't mind seeing Branko again, him and his long Italian love thighs. But I had other things on my mind, like finding Tobias and then relaxing and getting warm for the night. For his part, Branko didn't seem pleased to see me. He was sitting at his desk, arms crossed, when I was thrust roughly into his office by the two cops who'd hauled me in. In a second, I took in the classic proportions and lines of Branko's whole body. Even without knowing exactly what lurked under the fabric of his clothing, I sensed that the musculature was worthy of a prominent record in marble. There are easier ways to beckon me, Lieutenant. Sit down, Kraychik. His eyes glittered angrily at me. We got a problem here. So have I. I don't really like being hauled. I don't care what you like. He got up from his desk and paced around his office with a heavy, aggressive tread, unusual for him. He finally stopped when he was standing directly behind me. We found Tobias Cole. Where is he? Is he okay? He was wandering around Government Center, alone. But he's all right. Aside from being scared, yes, but he doesn't let on about that. He says he's fine. My brave little tiger, I said, relieved that Tobias had been found and was safe, especially with the weather so harsh. Now, what was he doing out there, I asked. Branko answered with a voice too severe for the circumstances. He was lost, so he got a passing stranger on the street to call us. Then he told the patrol car that he wanted to see his mother. My men brought him here instead. Thanks for calling me, Lieutenant. I'll take him home now. That's where the problem comes in, Kraychik. His words bristled with anger. Lieutenant, what exactly is the problem you keep mentioning? Branko walked around to face me directly. He sat on the edge of his desk and folded his arms across his chest. The scent of pine around him softened his belligerent stance. His shirt sleeves were rolled up for work with the cuffs of starched white cotton embracing his strong forearms, olive-tan skin veiled with shiny dark hair. He said, That kid said something that's bothering me. He always says a lot of bothersome things. Damn precocious 4-year-old. But this one is a real problem for me. Branko's look was almost hateful, and I wondered what I'd done to earn it this time. Lieutenant, are you going to tell me, or just keep me curious? What did the little bugger say? Don't push me, Kraychik. Branko stood up and leaned forward toward me, putting his face close to mine. What he said was, and I quote, My Uncle Stan's got a nice ding-dong. Branko said the final word with such force that a few flicks of spit flew out and landed on my jacket, which I took as a gift bestowed from an angry god. I felt my face and ears getting hot with blood. Lieutenant, I think I can explain. I don't want your explanation. Not yet. I want to say what's on my mind first. He sat down and put his own hand to his forehead, momentarily at a loss for words. You know, Kraychik, I try to be reasonable with people like you. I know you have the right to choose a different kind of life, even though I don't know why you do it. And I also know that the way you live can cause problems, the kind that normal folks don't have. The skin around my nipples tingled. Lieutenant, my preference for men is not a problem for me. It is for some of us. Then face it yourself. I do. Branko shot me a spiteful glance. But when you start fooling around with kids, that's beyond a matter of choice. That's breaking morals. It's just plain wrong. I did not fool around with him. Then how does he know about your ding-dong? Damn it. He stayed with me last night. He had to since you so clumsily decided to jail his mother. When I woke up this morning, I forgot he was there, and I walked into my kitchen without a robe. Is that against your morals, too? Rankles twisted his mouth while he considered what I'd said. I live alone, Lieutenant. Sometimes I don't bother with clothes. Don't you ever do that? Never mind about me. Tobias saw me and made the comment. Believe me, it made me squirm too. It's strange for a young kid to be so interested in sex. No, Lieutenant, not strange at all. In fact, it's completely natural at that age. Sex is just part of their world without all the religious and emotional traps that adults insist on applying to it. If a kid ever said that about me, You'd what, Lieutenant? Hit him? Put the fear of God in him? Screw up his view of sex forever? No answer from the he-man. You ever had kids around? I asked. I'm not married. The conditions are not mutually dependent. If you believe in God and family, they are. There's nephews and nieces. Being Italian, you ought to know. Branko dismissed my logic with an annoying flick of his hand. I can't figure out why the boy would say that unless you tried to do something to him. Come on, Lieutenant. It's me, Stan Kraychik. I'm not a goddamn child molester. I may be lonely, but I'm not desperate. He stared at me as I continued trying to appease him. Look, Tobias's mother has a boyfriend who's naked around the boy a lot. You mean the dead man? Well, yeah, but Lieutenant, Tobias's interest in male organs is just a phase. Even Freud claimed that girls have penis envy. I shrugged and added, maybe boys have penis curiosity. I almost wanted to ask him, what's yours like? But I didn't. Branko set his face into a pensive scowl. Apparently, my version of pop psychology was reaching some remote gate in his logic circuits. Finally, he said, I'd like to believe you wouldn't do anything perverse, Kraychik. I can't guarantee that, Lieutenant, but I can assure you that I don't want sex with children. Sheep, goats, and chickens, maybe, and the occasional plastic bag filled with jello, but not children. Now, can I take Tobias home, please? Branko grunted, which meant he'd heard me at last. Let's see how he feels about it, he said, then made a phone call and ordered someone to bring Tobias into his office. When Tobias entered and saw me, he exclaimed, Uncle Stan! Then ran to me and hugged me. I didn't do it. I didn't run away. I just wanted to see my ma. I held his little body close to me and said, It's all right now. Of course, Branko had to intrude. Son, do you want to stay with this man? I have a name, Lieutenant. Quiet, you. Then he knelt down and spoke directly to Tobias. Do you want to go home with Stan? Hearing my name from his lips caused my heart a little skip. Tobias nodded energetically. And you'll feel safe with him. Tobias nodded again. You're not afraid. Tobias shook his head and said, Uncle Stan will protect me. I couldn't have paid him to say it better. Can we go now, Lieutenant? I guess so, he said tiredly. Just one more thing, though. How did the boy end up staying with you in the first place? His mother asked me to take care of him. Branko nodded at my answer as though he'd happily found a loophole. We'll have to get a signed affidavit from her if she wants to continue the arrangement. Otherwise, the boy will have to be placed in court care. No, said Tobias. I'll stay with Uncle Stan and Nick. He means Nicole, I added quickly. Matter settled, Lieutenant. Not officially. Good night, Kraychik. I was leading Tobias out of Branko's office when I thought of something. Lieutenant, do you know where I can find Dan Dougherty? Why, I lied. His facial products arrived today, and I know he wants them, but I can't reach him at his place. So, I'm sure he wouldn't leave town without telling you, and I thought maybe. I can't help you, Branko interrupted. Is he staying in Abigail? If you know, why are you asking me? I don't have his address there. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Just thought I'd ask. You just keep yourself covered up at home. Are you policing my bedroom now? Get out of here. Tobias and I got to ride back in a cruiser, and despite the slippery roads, we were back in front of my building by 10 o'clock. As I was opening the outside door, Tobias asked if we could watch a video. Sure, I said agreeably, hoping to curb any other ideas he might have to run away again. Besides, a movie had been part of my alternative plan that night anyway, when I was going to be holed up warm and cozy and alone. No, not alone, with Tony. Tony! What if he called while I was out? Had I lost my chance? And now Tobias was with me. How was I going to stage this scene? The video store was just around the corner from my apartment, and since the snow was letting up a bit, Tobias and I walked there together. Once inside, I headed us directly for the animation children's section, but Tobias had other ideas. Where are you going, Tobias? I want body talk. Tobias, that's for adults. Truck watches it all the time. When him and Ma go in the other room, I play it slow motion. What I wondered was going on here. Just minutes ago, I'd been arguing with Branko about not limiting a child's experience of sex, yet here I was, myself resistant to rent a sexy movie that Tobias wanted to see. If I said no, would it adversely affect Tobias's attitude about sex? If I said yes, would I be too permissive? Perhaps Branko had a point after all. I solved it quickly by telling Tobias that if we were going to watch a video, it should be something that we both wanted to watch, and truthfully, Body Talk was not on my list of must-sees. We finally agreed on Bambi 2. Not a sequel to the classic, but an adult animation sensation, as it was billed on the box. We got home, and sure enough, Tony had called again and left a sad little message. Well, Stan, he said with a mournful tone, looks like you're out whoring. Too bad. I missed you. Maybe we can try again next time I'm in town. So much for romance that night. While I fed Sugar Baby and I put her frozen pizza in the oven, I called Nicole. Nikki, I've got him. He was at the police station trying to visit Lorette. That boy gets around for a 4-year-old. He's got definite opinions about films, too. Did you talk to Dan Dougherty? No. It's probably just as well, darling. Stay warm tonight and get some rest. Same to you, doll, I said with a note of envy. Click. Yes, I was slightly jealous of Nikki and her ardent, handsome, financially successful young lover. I was feeling old, unwanted, withering on the vine. Tobias tugged at my trousers. I'm hungry, he said. Back to reality. While the pizza baked, I threw together a quick salad. At least part of our dinner would be dietetically sound. Tobias would have nothing to do with the vegetables, though. His ideal of vegetables was potato chips. I told him if he wanted them, he'd have to go himself to the corner store for them. When he made for his coat, I stopped him. You're already painted the town tonight, Buster. I'll go get them. You don't move. Clear? Yep. When I returned, the terrorist child from hell had already started watching Bambi 2. It turned out to be a pretty erotic and explicit, but I figured it was only consenting cartoon animals cavorting in the comfort of their own forest for the benefit of two insignificant human voyeurs. Once we'd eaten and I'd had a double bourbon, we both fell asleep on the couch while the animals played on. I was awakened by the sudden sound of white noise whooshing at me. When the tape had finished, I tucked Tobias in to sleep on the couch while I took the bed this time. I laid my robe across the covers, hoping that would remind me to put it on tomorrow morning. Sugar Baby joined me shortly after I lay down as she squished herself up against my thigh and started purring her lullaby. I wondered, is this what parenthood is about? It seemed like lots of concerned activity that signified nothing. I turned my mind back to the mysterious poisoning of last night. I wondered about Dan Dougherty and Prentice Kingsley. Were they together in Abigail? Was Liz Carlini with them? And what about those other two from the Gladys Gardner factory? Mary Finney and John Lau? What was their strange connection? Tomorrow was going to be a busy day. Perhaps I'd even find some answers. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.